Why would we pick against Detroit? Whose idea was that?
Not mine.
Philadelphia came so close to blowing that. I loved every single report of that bettor that put down 3 million and almost
Can you
boned
imagine?
himself.
Can you
Oh,
imagine?
you and I both missed three. Jackson missed five. But
I missed Tennessee, Buffalo. Who was my third one? Was it? Did I pick the Jets?
we both did Green Bay to start the week.
Oh, I did pick Green Bay. I did pick Green Bay.
That's why I was. That's why I said whose idea was that?
So I was like, no, I picked Detroit. No, I did not. I picked Green Bay. And we welcome you to Wilk and Wish, your bi-weekly update of Utah athletes in the National Football League. And we also like to highlight you, the fan, today on a Monday episode. As always, highlighting some pretty great performances, honestly, from this past weekend. Injuries are continuing to stack up. Cole, that's kind of been a theme this year. We got a lot of guys hurt, but the guys who are playing pretty darn good. And that really started
That they are.
on Thursday night. Detroit and Green Bay. Tim Patrick, who was an early candidate for Player of the Week before many other things happened on
Yeah.
Sunday. Well, one particular player happened on Sunday again. But 6 catches, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. Got a game ball from Dan Campbell in the locker room after the game. Jordan Love goes 12 of 20 for 206 yards and a touchdown. Chris Brooks with 1 carry for 3 yards. Zane Anderson, 4 tackles. A lot of special teams with how much scoring was going on in this game. So,
But Zane Anderson was also forced into real action
yeah,
late in that game, right? Those pivotal last drive things that were going on for Detroit. Zane was on the other side, and he had a nice little shed and got in there on a tackle.
good for Zane. Yeah. Uh, man, Dan Campbell has got some cojones, man. Like, that's all anyone's been talking about.
Yeah,
That's I don't even know what else to say other than that. So props
and it
to
worked. And it's still this is look, year over year that will probably even out, but this is my same take on the Chiefs as they continue to do what the Chiefs have done. Some years you've just got the sauce and you can keep
mm-hmm.
doing it and it won't matter. And the way Dan Campbell is rolling right now, it feels like he can do no wrong. And I hope that there is some offseason adjustment and he gets some people in his ears. And especially if they lose Ben Johnson, there would have to be massive changes in Detroit, whatever. But hey, man, this year, as long as it's rolling with them, take the team of destiny thing and keep going for it. On fourth and short with 20 seconds to go, and you're already in field goal range. And yeah, that was beyond me. But okay. So that's Thursday night. Sunday, I mean, we did it first in our picks, and it was about the only boring game, right? And it still ended up competitive, but who cares when it's New Orleans and the New York Giants? So our Utah connections, we unfortunately there were a few injuries going on. Jamal Williams had 2 receptions for 10 yards. We're missing Taysom Hill, and the Giants are missing a lot, and it seems like they might be missing Brian Dable by the end of all this.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
New Orleans gets the win 14-11.
Yeah, no, Rashid Shaheed too. He's been out for a long time, and he's out for the year. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we're surprised he's still out. It just stinks that he's been out
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. So, kind of the other boring game from Sunday, Jacksonville and Tennessee. We talked about the game for the week. Jacksonville prevails 10-6. Devin Lloyd had 8 tackles in a game that went about like we expected it to.
And by the way, Jacksonville had the first overall pick in 2021, first overall pick in 2022. This is all now the same GM, Trent Baalke, who knows if he's going to still have his job next year, but they were on track. They had the inside track to get the first overall pick in 2025. This is a team that has, of late, been historically bad, and no one's talking about it. Cleveland got kind of out of it, and Myles Garrett's good, and they're relevant, and Jameis Winston's fun or whatever. Detroit has been a long time punching bag of the NFL, and they're, the best team in the world. Jacksonville is the new just joke of the league right now.
It's bad. It's really bad.
A game that ended up being quite good, and if you had shown me the result of this game, just shown me this game in a vacuum in the preseason, I would have been like, awesome. These two teams were fighting for a playoff spot. One of these teams was eliminated from the playoffs by the end of it, and it was Miami versus New York, the Jets, 32-26 in overtime. Tua played good. The defense, had some spotty tackling here and there, but Aaron Rodgers was dealing a little bit and he was connecting with Garrett Wilson. It was an overtime competitive game between division rivals, and neither will probably be in the playoffs in 4 weeks.
Cue
And we
Ron
know
ha-
that the Jets won't for the 14th straight year.
Cue the Ron Howard voice. It was not, in fact, a game with playoff implications.
Yes.
Cue Arrested Development there. Yeah, fun game though. Like you said, just if you're an innocent bystander, a fun game with not a lot of meaning. This game had a lot of meaning. Man, the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, looking like he did at better than he looked at USC at any point in his college career, dealing. They beat the Falcons 42-21. Utah Connections Tyler Algier started the game really strong with an early opening touchdown of the game. 9 carries, 63 yards, and a score. Caden Ellis did have 10 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, and 2 QB hits. Clark Phillips III, 3 tackles, and had a phantom fumble recovery that did end up getting called back. It was a forward pass, but if you were watching Red Zone, Clark Phillips got a moment where you thought, oh, big fumble return. But man, the Vikings are just good, and the Falcons have got issues and have had issues for about a month and a half now.
Yeah, the last time I saw Sam Darnold put up a performance like this, it was the Rose Bowl against the Penn State Nittany Lions, who will be in the playoff, by the way. We got that result.
Yeah.
Or
and
at least
they
the bracket
somehow
to look
got it
forward
right.
to.
Like, isn't that
Yeah,
something? Like, at the end
Alabama
of the day,
out, the seedings all kind of make sense.
yeah. Like,
That works.
even the committee got it right before
the
the
beef
Jets
that
did.
I'm seeing around. Oh boy.
Like, that's what's wild. This committee got it right before the New York Jets have gotten anything right.
And the entire
Woof.
college football playoff era has come and gone since the Jets have been in the playoffs, because 2010 we were still in the BCS era when the Sanchez was leading the Jets to playoff wins.
Woof.
Another game with no Utah connections, but it ended up being tight. And there was one mystery person out there that was starting to sweat things. The Philadelphia Eagles do get the win against the Carolina Panthers 22-16. It was mentioned on Red Zone, mentioned in the broadcast, mentioned on social media that some guy put down a record amount of money on the Philadelphia Eagles money line, because I mean it makes sense. They're rolling a little bit. Carolina looks terrible. 3 million just to make, like a sixth of your money back the way that the line rolled, and you were sweating it until the last minute. But Philadelphia does get the win. There's now beef between Jalen Hurts and his star wide receivers, despite things being like Jalen Hurts just can't. I've liked a lot of the vibes around Jalen Hurts, the stories, the way he's committed to the game and committed to getting better every offseason. He manages to have beef with his coach every offseason. Now he's beefing with A.J. Brown. And his
That's weird.
performance isn't that good to warrant it all.
He's got a really good O line and the best running back in football to hand the ball off to. And oof. Yeah, I don't know. It's odd. You wonder, is this going to be a similar spiral to what we saw a year ago now? I don't know that it will be, but makes you wonder a little bit.
I mean, we've talked about the Vikings and the Lions, even at the height of Saquon doing like the league MVP possible things that he was doing, and that door I think got shut based on one of the performances that we're going to get to. But even when Saquon was at his best and people were talking about the Eagles as one of the teams to beat, I don't buy it on this team. Like they're ripe for an NFC Championship game loss, sure, but that's as far as I ever had them going. And now this starts unraveling, and it might be just, a wild card in and out kind of thing. In the old days when two teams got buys, maybe they get a bye to the divisional, but they don't even get a single win. That's what it's looking like for these Eagles.
Your Steelers get revenge on Cleveland. Has Tomlin still never lost to Cleveland at home in the regular season? Is that still
Nor
correct?
Bill Cowher for the last half of his regime.
Yeah.
It was the first year of Ben Roethlisberger.
Wow.
Was when this streak started, 2004, that the Steelers have not lost at home to the Browns in the regular season. One of the most heartbreaking losses of my life was the 2020 playoffs when Baker Mayfield and those Browns actually got a playoff win. Just a brutal start to that game. There was kind of a comeback. It was in that era of the Steelers, despite having a really good defense statistically and everything else, they would, play the Jags and have 40 thrown up on them. And we played the Browns in 2020 and had 40 some thrown up on. It was ugly football, and it was it just always seemed like it was going to be a loss. And so that one was brutal, but regular season. Yep.
Yeah, so they win 27-13. Jalen Warren has had a great second half of the year. 9 carries, 47 yards, a tackle for Miles Killebrew. Mohamed Diabate for the Browns, 7 tackles, and a tackle for loss.
And
Pittsburgh looks
speaking of a
good.
team that, might lose in the wild card round, though, the Steelers they're pretty hot, but I do not take a Super Bowl seriously,
Sure.
despite Russ doing things that are good and Najee and Jalen Warren working well on the ground. It hasn't been the dominant run game that I think Arthur Smith was promised to bring us, and the Russ experience is still way too volatile. If if George Pickens is going to be out literally at all or not 100% for the playoffs, this team doesn't have a real shot. Despite, I mean, Mike Williams did some things down the field. That was a nice little pickup for free. But
Yeah.
a couple games with no Utah connections. Tampa Bay beats Las Vegas in a game that was kind of closer than this throughout the course of it. Final score 28-13. Tampa Bay's defense did pretty good for you in fantasy because there was a stretch of just like 5 minutes of real time where these teams were just taking turns giving it to
Fumbling.
each other for
Yeah.
no apparent reason. And Tampa Bay might be headed to another backdoor NFC South championship if they can get over that Falcons, tiebreaker that's in front of them. But they don't look great. Like
No.
this Buccaneers team was hitting a stride a couple weeks ago, same time as those Eagles, where they looked really dangerous. This was not a dangerous team. They will probably be a playoff team, and they have a couple weeks to figure it out again to like course correct. But
Yeah.
not a good look against the Raiders.
Lucky they were playing Vegas basically
Yeah.
this week.
We went. Look, after we talk about this game, we'll get to talk about the best game of the entire
Sure.
2024 season.
Sure.
So there's light at the end of your tunnel here.
Yeah. Arizona loses their third straight to Seattle, 30-18. Mark the day, Cole. November 10th. I was feeling really good. I took a picture in my office of my Cardinals helmet and my BYU helmet.
Yeah.
Since then, Arizona has lost 3 straight. BYU lost 2 of their last 3. So I feel kind of bad about that tweet, if you will.
It was probably your fault,
probably
all things considered.
I've seen the same thing from the Cardinals the last 4 weeks. Oh, we'll be better next week. And there's moments where they are, but they were not better this week than they were against Minnesota the week before. Now you and I are going to be at State Farm Stadium on Sunday, which is kind of wild to think about. And the one bright side of this, ticket prices just plummeted after 3 straight losses.
Yeah.
Sort of good news, bad news. In the words of Michael Scott, we were able to be on the scene because we were in the car that hit the Cardinals. I mean, it is just Kyler's turning the ball over again, and the defense can't.
And if it wasn't for those 2 really early, like he got it out of the way early on, and then they stayed in it. These are still 2 very competitive teams, and I love when they play.
Yeah, now Seattle's got the tiebreaker on us. Playoff hopes just took this. I told my wife this might have been the biggest Cardinals game in our marriage, and then I looked back on it. I was like, probably not actually, given there were a couple big games during the Kingsbury years, but this was by far the biggest game of the season this year, and they just kind of fell flat on their face at home. So, got to rebound. Got to beat the Patriots on Sunday. We'll be hoping for that. Might be snagging a Marv jersey while I'm there. We'll see what goes down. But
those black jerseys look nice. That they were playing in.
That's the one I'd get. Is the black one. So the red ones, man. The white ones are too Ohio State-ish. And then anyway. Well, let's talk about the game of the week, man, because it was wild. I mean,
and it manages to make the NFC West still fun and competitive if you hate the Seahawks or if you just are hoping for chaos to reign supreme in that division, because the Rams 44-42 against the Buffalo Bills, despite he's no Utah connection here, despite the bowl game that BYU played him one time, but Josh Allen,
he played Utah State a few times.
Yeah, he's in that Mountain West region. Whenever people draw the line of there's only one baseball team in this half of the country, he's in that half of the country along with us. So Josh Allen, pride of Wyoming, 6 total touchdowns, 51 fantasy points, the most that a quarterback has gotten ever since fantasy has been kept track of. And he did it while on the other side, our Utah connection was
Mm.
having the game of a lifetime as well to keep the Rams up on top. 12 receptions for Nakua of Orem High, 162 yardage and a touchdown. Also, 5 carries, 16 yards and a touchdown. He was eaten on those jet sweeps. Had one of the catches, one of the all-time toe taps on a sideline.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
all over the place. Puka, amazing. And Taron Johnson, also for the Bills, 7 tackles, doing work out of the nickel when these Buffalo safeties, which was the worry of their defense and which was why a lot of people were saying, this is a Buffalo, rebound year, rebuild year, whatever you want to call it. Some of those fears from the preseason were coming out in this game that we hadn't seen all season. Taron Johnson was like trying to be the bubblegum and glue that was holding together just patchwork back there, going up against the likes of Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford when he's dealing. What a
Mm.
game.
Yeah. Block punt ended up being the big difference in this one too. Special teams,
Yeah,
man. That's why you have three facets. But man, can we talk about some of those catches again that Puka had? I mean,
please.
I know the toe tap. The toe tap is the iconic one, and the one that Tom Brady just would not stop talking about.
Tom,
Um,
Tom Brady, the
which
broadcaster, is a different conversation too.
sure, yeah. Um, but man, just some of the contorting and the timing of the routes and the connection with Stafford and the placement that Stafford used. I mean, last year wasn't a fluke. Like Puka is here to
That was
stay.
that was it, right? So he's injured for so much of this year, and all those pre-draft concerns of, yeah, he's got some talent to him, but he wasn't fast, and he has some injury concerns and whatever, and it's just Puka. And maybe last year was just Matt Stafford deciding in a year where Cooper Kupp was also injured that he was just going to laser focus on a guy. Oh no, there is legit, and it still surprises me a little bit because I think I've gotten too accustomed to seeing it, and it's hard for me to believe that someone I've seen for this long to be truly this good. When people are drafting him in fantasy as a wide receiver one, he's a top 12 wide receiver just in the league now. We can put that on him.
So I have a group of guys I go to lunch with down here in Sanpete County. We try to go about every 6 to 8 weeks, and it's kept getting pushed back because of different things, state football, out of town travels amongst different people. Our friend has written an itinerary for our lunch on Friday. Here are
Puka
some of the
Nakua is number one.
here's some of those. Okay, I'm not going to read all of them because there is some
Mhm.
that don't involve anything regarding this podcast. College coaching carousel, the Alamo Bowl, the
Hmm.
transfer portal,
Hmm.
high school sports realignment,
Yeah.
AJ Dybansta's college choice, which will be coming tomorrow morning on first take. Could be BYU
Shout
there.
out
And
Stephen A.
college,
talking
yeah.
about BYU probably.
The final bullet point is Puka Nakua a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL? And I can't wait to have
Gosh.
this conversation on Friday. Um, but I mean, when the dude's healthy and when he plays, man, and he's not throwing punches randomly and getting ejected,
Yeah.
like it's pretty freaking cool.
Oh yeah. And so the Rams get this win, not to be like lost in all of this.
Sure.
In a season where they were almost written off because they've been up and down even when everyone's been healthy. They haven't all the way been there. This was the game where they were all the way there, and yet the defense still allows 42 on the other side in a win, but like Buffalo almost comes back. And so they're still right there in the division. And then the 49ers now have the same record as the Cardinals because they get the most dominating win of Sunday, I think.
Yeah.
Considering at
From start
halftime,
to
what,
finish. Yeah.
yeah, they had 312 yards and the Bears had two,
4.
four at one
I think it
point.
was 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So Thomas Brown, this is something we talked about in the preview show. Thomas Brown had been working as an offensive coordinator. You promote him again, and all of a sudden, he doesn't quite have the bandwidth to be the offensive coordinator, I guess, because he's trying, something that works in like the real world of management also, where if you're really good at one thing, sometimes you get promoted and you're not as good at being the boss as you were at being this thing. And so Thomas Brown on a short week, yeah, struggled to get the game plan together against a 49er team that after being banged up and everything is maybe pulling it all together. 38-13 is your final score. Fred Warner, 3 tackles. Jalen Johnson, 4 tackles, 2 pass breakups, or it's 2 tackle for losses and a pass breakup on the day as our Utah connections.
They're still in last place because Arizona has the tiebreaker for right now. So
Mm-hmm.
gotta love it. Cue the I believe it's from not Outer Banks. Oh my goodness, what's it's like considered the best show of all time or one of the best shows of all
So
time.
probably not Outer Banks, but
No,
maybe Outer Banks.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know why I thought the B, like I knew there was B's in there, so I thought OBX because that's been on
Mm-hmm.
our topic of conversation a lot lately with my brother-in-law. Cue the Breaking Bad. I believe it's from Bad, where you can't keep getting away with this.
There it
The amount
is.
of times I
Yeah.
have seen that in the last 24 hours.
See, the connection you would know is one of the years that Breaking Bad was up for a whole ton of Emmys. The Office was as well, and the Emmys promo was Aaron Paul, the actor who plays anyway Jesse Pinkman coming into the office in Scranton, the office,
Creed's
and
involved.
interacting with those people. Hmm.
That's a great bit. That whole thing is just fantastic.
Anyway,
Uh,
the Chiefs keep getting away with it.
yeah, they win 19-17 over the Chargers on a doinked field goal at the last second that goes in
Successful doink. Have we ever seen that?
with a backup kicker. I've seen it, but not for the win.
Yeah.
Never for the win. Yeah.
It's a tough time to hate the Chiefs.
I know.
I feel a little bit.
That's
And
why
I don't get it.
as
I
long
I kind of enjoy this, but a lot of the people I interact with, you included twice a week, just it's got to be
I
painful.
feel like I'm in acceptance that this it's going to be if they do this winning a Super Bowl, that's when it's going to become a real issue. Like it's annoying, but I've kind of just gotten to the point where I'm like, well, when they played a really good team in Buffalo, like you have to beat the Chiefs. Like that's the thing about this Kansas City team.
Yeah.
You have to beat them for 4 quarters. You have to pound them into the ground. That's what Buffalo did. So we'll see. We'll see how this
And the
all ends up.
Chargers tried to pound him into the ground. They just didn't have J.K. Dobbins
Right.
and never had the talent to start this season to be able to really do that. And the fact that they'll make the playoffs is a really awesome story. And Jim Harbaugh is wonderful. But yeah, of course they come out on top of this particular game. But the fact that they maybe almost didn't. Same thing as last Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they maybe almost didn't against a Raiders team that is just as down and out as a team could be. Who knows?
Right.
And then the game that just wrapped. Sometimes we start with this, but the Simpsons of it was more interesting than the game itself.
Did you watch the Simpsons broadcast?
I was bouncing back and forth.
Mm.
I had Simpsons on my phone most of the time, and then we were trying to watch the main broadcast on a bigger screen. But Cincinnati does get the win, 27-20. Ryan Rico, the punter, 3 punts, 121, had a long of 62, great punt, and then Nick Vigil had a punt block for Dallas.
That
So it's all special teams.
that ended up costing the Cowboys on the flip side. Not because
Exactly.
of Nick, but because one of his teammates then touched it downfield. It became a live ball.
Yep.
And Micah Parsons just ran straight back to the locker room.
Yeah.
Was so mad. So anyway, yeah, that game went about like I thought it would go. Something bad was going to happen to one of these two teams at the end that was going to cause the other team to lose. And lo and behold, it was just happened to be Dallas. So
I needed 14 points out of CD Lamb to survive one more week in the Guillotine League that we talk about often. I was in 2 at the start of the year, so I've already failed in 1, but I'm in the top 4 in the other because CD had 17 at halftime, and I was sitting comfortably.
I needed, let's see, I needed 22 between Chase Brown and Jamar Chase. And even then, there was a lot of variables in the league I'm still in with Guillotine. Like any 5 of the teams could have lost by the end of the night, depending on what happened. But it was the guy who had no one left because there were a lot of guys between Jamar and Brown. I ended up with 69 points between the two of them. And I only really needed 30 or 24. Like I would have been fine on Chase Brown alone. Had Jamar Chase just not played and I'd left him in, had I left George Pickens in for Jamar Chase, which would have never happened anyway.
Right.
Because my sub for Pickens ended up being Garrett Wilson, who was really good.
Yeah, that was 18. That was good.
But I every single guy I started did above his projection this week.
Oh, it was that kind of week in fantasy. So
Yeah.
also in our dynasty that we talk about, and there's more starting spots, and so the scores are a little bit higher.
Right.
But your average winning score in that league is somewhere between like 125 and 130. I feel like maybe even less than that, depending on who you're playing. The most in the league was 184. Second in most was the guy that I was playing at 180. These are teams that are all guaranteed in the playoffs. I'm also already locked into the playoffs, so I didn't need it. And I was so far behind. I got 174. Like CD made it close for me. And then our buddy David Brinkerhoff, who we talk about, had 177. It was a huge, I mean, when Josh Allen does what he did, Puka, all
Right.
these guys, I started Sam Darnold in my QB1 and he's been doing well, but never as well as this week.
So here's what's wild. Gentry was the one who scored the 184 because it was against me because I put up 135 and I'm trying to lose, but
Yeah.
I'm still starting guys that are healthy. I'm trying to do it in a respectable way
Hmm.
because I had great game from Achan and Shakir and Puka. Yeah, he forgot to sub out Brees Hall and still dropped 184. He could have moved Zach Charbonnet back up to a running back because he had Charbonnet in his lineup, but at a flex,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
could have started, I think, Ray McLeod or Calcaterra for the Eagles, their backup tight
Hmm.
end that's now starting because Goddard's out. Yeah, he could have pushed 200 points. In fact, no, if he had started Ray McLeod, he would have hit 200 points.
I would
That's
have gotten
insane.
to 195-ish. Bucky Irving, who was injured in that miserable Buccaneers Raiders game, only got me two. And Tim Patrick on Thursday he's been sitting on my dynasty roster since the Broncos days of being injured forever. Had 22 to start the whole week. So yeah, it was a nice little fan, especially it gave intrigue for fantasy leagues across America for this to be the
Mm-hmm.
last week before kind of your universal start of the playoffs. A lot of a
Right.
lot of things were won and lost, and it was exciting.
Yeah. Well, Cole, appreciate you, my man. We're going to have hopefully our good friend Jordan Howe, Rams fan, on the show this Thursday. He was on the show last year. Just felt like after Puka, we need some Rams material
Love
coming
it.
in. Should be interesting. So,
Well, before we say goodbye,
oh, we got to give well, do we need to really give an MVP out
Puka is the
because it's
MVP.
Puka?
Bye,
Yeah.
Tanner.
Tim
See you on
Patrick had a
Thursday.
good week. Tyler
He
Algier had
did,
a good
yeah.
week. Yeah, there you go.
I love Algier coming back a little bit. We might have
Yeah.
glossed over that a little bit too much, and especially there's been a lot of injuries, and
Well, and
it
they're
seems like our
losing.
roster of Utah guys is a little thinner than it was to start the season. But
Yeah.
I mean, Penne
Atlanta's
is
losing
still the
games.
man.
Yeah, Penny had another great game on Thursday. Well, and a lot of buys this week too. I mean, Denver's got a bunch of guys. They were on buy. So yeah, this has been Wilk and Wiss. Tune in on Thursday for a special episode. We'll be talking about making a trip to the desert, Cole, which is
That's
crazy
right.
that trip's finally come up. I'm excited for it, even after a 3-game losing streak. That means they're due a win. That means this team should be due a win against a bad New England team coming off a bye because
That's
it's
right.
it's Gerard Mayo off a bye, not potential UNC head coach Bill Belichick, which
That's
is just a whole other thing we could talk about for days. So appreciate you, my man. We'll talk on Thursday.
Oh, can't wait.
This has been Wilk and Wish, your bi-weekly update on Utah athletes in the National Football League, as well as you, the fan. We'll catch up with you on Thursday.